Welcome to the Apex Insider Push to Cash XPEL Road America recap show. That's a handful, but we got Nathan Rogers here. We are here to just break down the race that we had on Sunday. I mean, we were just briefly chatting about it. It was a wild one. It was kind of crazy how many yellows that we saw really early on. So, yeah, we're here to break it down, talk through some of the bets and wagers, and then maybe we can tease up what is next? Barber? No, not Barber. Mid-Ohio?
Yep.
Mid-Ohio. So, yeah, man. Well, yeah, a lot to digest there. And, of course, Pelot got the win, which comes of no surprise. But at one point, were like, oh, maybe he won't win this one. But yeah, let's get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it kind of what was shown with Pelot. I brought up on last week's episode of when you talk about a road course, you talk about primary tires being the preferred tire that makes you lean Pelot, and we saw some really exciting racing. Like you could make an argument that this race was better than Gateway if that's what you prefer, but either way, I think Gateway and Road America have the last two races have been the best two races of the year so far. And there was a lot of starts and restarts from several cautions. I think people are getting aggressive now. I think they're kind of throwing their conservativeness out the window with, the championship is essentially wrapped up, aside from a few people. If Kirkwood or maybe a Ward can go on an absolute insane run, they might be able to make this close. But otherwise, people are just wanting to win races. They're wanting good results, and you can see that with teams taking some bold strategies and doing some things different, and that really mixed up everything in the race. But we saw a lot of great passes on these restarts, and even several laps into a stint after a restart when people were on those red tires, and even some people on the primaries were just able to make moves all day. I haven't looked at the numbers of the passing, but I have to imagine it was the best of any road course or street course since the hybrid was introduced. But Pelot on those primaries was able to keep up and hold his ground for the most part. He did get swallowed up on the start. I think he moved back almost 5 spots or something, but he held in there, and then he did like a Dixon fuel save to win the race. There was a lot of questions of whether he could do it or not, and I think we were all kind of on the edge of our seat as Felix slowly closed that gap, who was much better on fuel and tires. And Pelot just held on, and he even had enough fuel to make it around, one more lap, as there was kind of the funny image of like 10 other cars just ran out of gas. It looked kind of like
it's crazy.
Just
crazy.
I've never seen that, so many cars off the road, and Ferrucci's over there by the fans. People are throwing him a beer, and he's throwing that down in the 100-degree weather. So kind of some funny stuff, some different stuff. But yeah, I enjoyed the race start to finish.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It's a great track. It's this was crazy. It was hotter in Wisconsin and at Road America than it was down here in Texas, which is, you would think it's the complete opposite. So I kind of felt for the guys that were just racing that entire track. What was it? 95 degrees and humidity at wherever, so it got you up to the like hundreds, and you're controlling this car through a technical track. And so it was kind of fun to see Ferrucci get that beer and chug it. I've never been a Ferrucci fan, but I can't say I also disliked him, really. I mean, maybe at points because he annoyed me early on, but really enjoyed that, and it kind of made me go like, okay, fine, you deserve that, which is actually surprising. Number one, he got top 3, and you called it too. You said that we were talking about the grid rival lines, and I think he was at 11 and a half. And I was like, man, like I've avoided him from fading him at least this year, because I think it was maybe early on or maybe last year even where I was like, I'm fading him, but he just kind of stung me on that. And you brought that up, like you could see him getting into the top 10, and there it is. He got into the top 10. So, and what is that, like his second podium this year? So,
Yeah, I think he's been top 5 the last 4 races,
like
actually.
that's crazy.
2
Like,
podiums and 4
yeah,
top 5.
it's time to take him serious. He's aggressive too. Like he will find his attacking zone and get in there. Like I've got to say, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with what he's doing, and especially for that team. Going back to Dixon,
if he improved his qualifying, I think he'd be a real force in this series. But that's kind of where he can't qualify that well a lot of times, and then he ends up just having to, race really aggressive, and it works out most times. He doesn't wreck his car too often somehow for how aggressive he is. But and if he upped his qualifying, I think he could be, he'd make it a lot easier on himself.
For sure, challenging more like in that top 3 every time. But like, yeah, like you said, it's just impressive. Top 5 last 4 races. So I know we've had some chaos in the last 2 that can give you some fortunate situations, but I mean, he's hell on Grid Rival. They're respecting him and they're putting him in. He can get in the top 10 basically. Like, try it if you want. So Dixon, I really thought he was going to pull it off. It was, I would have been impressed. I think I was like, why couldn't he? I felt like maybe there was at points like, shouldn't Ganassi be working together to say for those two? Like, I know there, Felix was charging along, but it didn't look like, one, Pelot had like plenty of fuel. It looked like, it looked like he was doing burnouts. He was able to, like, come on, he had plenty of fuel. And I don't know if they could have just worked together. Like Dixon could have at least said, maybe they could have conceded and said, listen, I'm not going to get first. I need to save more fuel. Pelot is got more pace. Let's just put Pelot ahead, and then Dixon can just trail, something like that, and just he can do this coast and lift, so they don't get burned by Felix should he come in. So I don't know if that is a possibility. I obviously don't know how much fuel he had, but I felt like that they could have maybe played that angle a little bit better to put both of them in the top 2. So.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know how much Pelot was involved with that decision to stretch himself for those last 2 stints, or how much the team thought about it. But I kind of wonder if he was on his way to his first championship or something, would they have been more conservative and done the same thing that Felix did essentially, and collect safe points, basically like, if we go this route, you'll finish top 5, no one will touch us in the points. Because if Pelot didn't make it on fuel with what they did, he would have been more like 10th like Dixon was, which is still a decent point. But I mean, they're like going for it and everything is working. And a lot of times when you see these people win so many races and get that big points lead, they'll get super conservative, but Pelot just continues to just like step on everyone's neck.
It's just so good.
Flex on them. Yeah, I mean, it's so incredible. And the broadcast mentioned, as far as the Dixon thing, that I guess maybe him kind of trailing and going off his draft kind of maybe helped with his fuel. But like you said, maybe they could have worked together. Dixon was 2 laps longer on his stint, so he would have needed a little bit differently. But I mean, we've seen Dixon in the last few years pull off maybe crazier things. So I was like, oh, here we go again. But he finally didn't make one of his insane saves.
I was actually going to be so mad because we were talking about that on the pod last week. I was like, something about Dixon, and if only he had two laps of fuel, he would have won that thing. But where did he end up? Like 7th or something like that?
Yeah, like 9th maybe. Like 9th.
9th,
so, And I do think it comes down to how hard it is to fuel save here and how small the pit windows are here, which we talked about. It's still almost worked, but it's just really hard to escape to go out of the standard of those two kind of lap windows that these drivers have.
Yeah.
Um, and they almost pulled it off, but I think it kind of proves that Road America is one fuel save on such a long lap and one of the harder ones to do a crazy alternate strategy.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears. Before I get to the depressing team, I do want to say, like, let's talk about Felix. I mean, Felix, I wouldn't say we were shocked that he would do good, but there was some, at least from my perspective, there were some questions I had about Meyer Shank here the past few races. And, again, we said, let's just temper, the street courses, the ovals, maybe that kind of, may not have been to their strength the past few races. Let's approach this with an open mind with Felix coming into this more traditional track, different track too, that you'll see on the circuit. And Felix has got that experience, and man, he put it in P2. Like, I would have not thought that. I thought maybe he could definitely get, top 8, in the top 8, like be like 7 or 8, or he could be in like P16, something with strategy or whatever could happen. But impressive stuff. He got to P2. And Armstrong, you also were banging your hands on the table about Armstrong this weekend too, or this past weekend. So that was one of our bets, by the way, which was Armstrong over, who was it?
There's Malukas and Rossi were the two that I took for him.
You took both. I only had Rossi. So so shout out to Meyer Shank. They actually did it. The yellows, I know. I mean, what did we have? 4 yellows in the first like 30 laps or something, 20 laps or something like that. So they took advantage of that too. They took advantage of those pits at the time, and I think they were trying to undercut. Maybe there was a little fortunate situation, but very impressive stuff by Meyer Shank this weekend. Armstrong, Felix. Any thoughts about them? And then, like, how do you feel? Like, do you feel like they're going to bring that momentum going into next week?
I'll have to look at. I haven't studied yet, but I was impressed by them. I didn't expect them to be that good. Felix did win at Road America under Ganassi before he left to McLaren, so I didn't really consider that. And him and Armstrong were on 2 completely different strategies. Armstrong kind of kept scaring me with the 2 bets I had because I just couldn't tell kind of where he would, you look at the charts and he'd be like 22nd or something.
And Rossi was up there for like the last 10 laps. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know like where Armstrong is at, but he ends up 5th. So, I mean, it was impressive by both of them, and not to take anything away from them, but I do think there were several cars that were better than them that kind of took themselves out. Like Lundgaard, I think have contended better with below than Felix did. Of course, the Penske's. They kind of took themselves out too. But other than that, yeah, I'd say that Felix was probably the next best strong car. They were kind of quiet all day, but they hung around and played the strategy game right.
Yeah, P2, man. I mean, let's be real. Like, you have Ferrucci, you have Simpson, you have Malukas, who in the beginning I thought was dead in the water. Thought he was actually going to be a lap down after that too, and somehow he was not. I was like, wow, they got him out there. He got out of that fast. Like,
yeah,
and
shows how long that lap is that they were able to dig him out.
Impressive stuff. And then you have Nolan Siegel at 8th, right? Like, he did better than both his teammates. Yes, I know Lundgaard had just went full just dumb mode somehow. He was doing perfectly fine too, which was crazy. VK Foster beating McLaughlin at the end. Oh my God. That was the one play where I was like most confident in it, and then
all year
apparently,
for me, I think.
yeah, like you said, I think it was like 9 out of 10 times that's going to hit, and we just happened to be in the 10% where it didn't, and it literally came down to the last like 2 laps. I think Foster was on his alternates. He was just
Yeah.
doing like 6/10 to 8/10 better than Scott, who was on primaries, and looked like he was also in kind of some fuel save mode as well. I think he was doing something like 48 twos while Foster was doing like 47 twos, so like I knew, I was like, this is not going to go well. Very disappointing because that one ruined, at least from my end, a sweep. But it is what it is. It happens. But let's talk about Penske. Let's first, like, I don't know what else to say about them, to be honest with you, because Joseph Newgarden, that was just him. Power, I don't know what he was doing as well half the time, but I feel like I see that from Power quite often, where maybe he has this like frustration driving going on or something happening where he just can't control himself. He spins out, does something. It's just, I feel like it's a common theme, but I was actually disappointed in Scott. Like, you would think like out of all three of them, he was going to be the most consistent, but he ended up 12th. Like, what is going on? Like, I at this point, I'm starting to question it.
Yeah, I think they got cut out every time the yellow came. It was kind of a tough. They were in a tough spot each time. It never really worked out for them. But he was kind of matching Pelot on what they were doing, and so I don't know how Pelot ends so far up there, and he ends up at 12th. I do think some of that probably comes down to the Honda engine, which is known to be better on the fuel mileage. So the save that McLaughlin's going for was probably, in his mind, like way more insane than what Pelot was feeling, and it was dicey for Pelot. So that's the difference. It comes down to that. But Penske's lost a lot of their experience. They're a pretty deep team as far as their strategists and engineers and stuff, but they've got some people that are in positions now having to make these calls, in the heat of the moment, who, maybe they've been more on the sidelines the last how many ever years, and they're being put in positions to make these calls. I know they were talking about on one of the IndyCar podcasts that how kind of like pissed off Newgarden is about Tim Cindric and the other people being gone, and just obviously how his year is going. And I think it's really getting to him at this point. I mean, he's wrecked in the last 2 races, one of them being his fault. But he hasn't done an interview after them. I don't think it's a huge deal or anything, but he's obviously, his frustration is reaching a boiling point, I think.
Totally.
I don't know. It's just weird because their race pace is still good almost every race. Their qualifying efforts have been up and down, probably more, you'd lean more poor than good. And then they've had a ton of bad luck and just weird things happen. And then they've also had stuff where they're making their own mistakes. So it's like, you don't know exactly where to lean. Like, you can't just say, oh, they're screwing up every race, because when you look at Gateway, all three of them finished like 24th or worse, and not one of them was the driver's fault. But then, at this race, I think Power spun out, Newgarden wrecked himself, and McLaughlin, I don't know for sure what's his fault, but just each week it's something.
Yeah, it's becoming frustrating. And I will take that bet every time. The Scott over Foster. This doesn't matter the situation. I just can't, I can't do it, really. I'm having struggles wanting to back a Newgarden right now. Wanting to back. I've been like that for Will Power for some time. I think I refused to touch him last year, even because I just didn't like he's just so erratic, and, at least since 2023 for me. But Scott, I was like, he's good. Like he's cashed us a lot last year and even this year. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm fully confident. I'm like, how in the world? Like we wouldn't be having this conversation. I bet you if he stayed ahead of Foster even by one spot, we'd be sweating it. But I would always still have in the back of my mind going into the next race, how the hell am I going to pick a Penske? I don't know how to even gauge Joseph, and I just can't. I always use the term, do you want to catch the falling knife? And right now, Joseph is that guy. Like, I'm not going to back it knowing, the risk is there. Then there's the other part of me that's like, how often, like, there's got to be a point where this doesn't happen because, like you said, the car should be fine at a lot of these tracks. Craziness happened in the Gateway race. Get it. Totally get it. But then you saw like last week, and last week he's made that mistake like multiple times this season where it's taken him out of the race. So it's kind of hard for me to get behind it. But knowing myself, if I'm only getting a limited amount of odds, and that's like one of my head-to-head options, I'll be like, fine, I'm going to do it because I love head-to-heads. So, but yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough for me to want to do anything with them. Two individuals I'll call out here. Herta, can't say I'm surprised where he ended up. I think it also, the trend with him all weekend is like, yes, he's been traditionally good at Road America, but he has not looked comfortable in his car through most of the sessions that weekend. And it just didn't make me believe that, unless a miracle happens, they do something, I just couldn't see him being in the top 4, which I really should have just went with my gut and just faded him like crazy on Grid Rival early on, because I think he was at 5. I just didn't do it because the part of me was like, well, maybe, he does do well here. I mean, it's unfortunate for him. I actually think maybe you can maybe have some input on this. I mean, ever since he lost Brian as his strategist, went to Kirkwood's been doing great, right? Like, does that dynamic is that having an issue? I know he's had car issues too and pit issues earlier in the season, but is there something with that's happening as well, where he's just not on the same page with his team right now?
Yeah, that move initially worked out really well for Kirkwood, and Herta was definitely more relaxed, I would say, when he was working with his dad. He'd kind of have that family kind of like bickering, and he's kind of cut down on that a lot. But then last year, Kirkwood didn't win a race, and then Herta was excellent through most of the year. Then this year, Herta had the best average qualifying for the first couple months of the season, but then I don't know if his team is sandbagging him because they didn't want him to get a super license so he could go to Cadillac. I don't know. And then now the way that Kirkwood is performing, it's like the team has taken a step forward, but Herta has taken a step back. He continues to qualify pretty well. He does this at road courses sometimes where he just has like an off weekend and he ends up back there. Those are the ones, like you said, when you can kind of get a read on that early, that would be a good time to try to jump on him, because he does this a couple of times a year, and most of the other time he's going to qualify Fast 6. I don't know if Andretti shifted over like the good equipment from the wind tunnel over to Kirkwood or what, or if Kirkwood's just more locked in. I feel like the last time that Herta had a lot of steam as far as being a championship guy and then going to F1, he had a pretty poor season too. So I don't know if it gets to him or if Kirkwood's just kind of things are falling in place for him while he's executing.
Maybe, man. He's been doing great. He's been doing fine. Although I was mad that he ended up in that 4th spot. Really would have loved Armstrong in that fourth spot and Kirkwood in fifth.
Yeah, I did want to talk about Louis Foster a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
His racing, his race pace, and just his race performance is still kind of leaving some to be desired. But um, when you kind of compare his start at RLL compared to like Lundgaard, his raw speed has almost surpassed what Lundgaard was doing his first couple, which was really impressive in his
Yeah,
first year. I think Lundgaard did a better job, especially like he always has, of keeping his car clean, getting results. Um, his floor is much higher, and the way he performs now, his ceiling is way higher too. Foster may be a guy to keep an eye on when he finally puts the races together, because he's taking the second round of qualifying often. This is, I think, his second Fast Six already, in less than 10 races. So, yeah, I mean, road courses, Foster might be a guy to keep an eye on if we ever get like a qualifying number for him or something. But otherwise, races are, I know you couldn't unload on him even if you knew he's going to qualify at this point. But I think he's a guy to keep an eye on, that maybe once he figures it out, if we time it right, we'll get, a long shot podium on him or something. It might not be this year, but maybe next year if he's still around. And just impressive what he's done so far with his pace.
totally. I think he's, like you said, qualifying, that just, he can get in there and he could put a lap. He can put in multiple laps. But I think that's also like inexperience when it gets to the races. Like, one, this is his first year. He's learning these cars. He's learning this track. It's typical for any young driver. It doesn't matter what racing series that they're just going to kill their tires, right? Like they just don't know until they kind of get out there, and they just, it may take even 2 years for him to really get polished up and understanding how to do a really good drive through a long stint. I'm totally with you. I've been, outside of fading him against McLaughlin, like I've been playing him consistently in our fantasy league. Like I will sign him up for a race and then, maybe drop him for the next, sign him up for a race. And he's been my MVP for that league for me. And it's been awesome, like just watching him. And another guy on the grid that kind of is a breath of fresh air to say, like, this guy might come in and he can do something. Like, we've now seen Lundgaard and we're all excited about him and his performance. Foster's next, right? Let's get the Ericsson out of here and let's give Foster there, a chance in one of the bigger teams, right? Like, we're frothing for it now. No offense, Ericsson. I like you. You're good, but what have you done for me lately, kind of thing. And
crazy.
Yeah, no, it's very impressive to see what he's done, and I'm with you. I'm excited to see. Yeah. So, anyone else or anything you saw or you want other? I'll tell you this, man. The food at Road America, that makes me alone want to go. Definitely, get my trip booked, because I did not realize like all those food choices that they had. So, and wanted to say very quickly for the guys that are in the Discord, if you're listening, Socksman, who's been like with us since like day one, he got to meet Joseph Newgarden and Will Power and asked his son if he wanted to hop in the car. And I thought that was a very, very cool moment for him. So shout out to Socks, man. If you're listening.
That's all. I think that's what makes like IndyCar the best, is how accessible, like in these tracks, I think at Road America they have like events on like Thursday, Friday, where you're at a bar drinking some Spotted Cow and Dario Franchitti's your bartender and stuff, and eating cheese curds and stuff. It's I think a lot of tracks have cool character, and then that's just really cool story too. Just driver coming up, and that's gonna maybe that makes that kid a lifelong fan of
huge,
just the series. So awesome story.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's just Wisconsin hospitality. They've been up there quite often. I love it out there. So I said I've got to put that on my agenda at some point. So go visit some family and and make the trip. So, but yeah, going back to, is there anything you saw? Anyone else you want to call out, or yeah, anything about the race in general?
So I mean, I think the results were a little mixed up because of all the strategies. I think I said in the, in the chat that like I'm gonna need paragraph context for myself next year before I look at these results. Like, oh yeah, like Nolan Siegel's really good here,
Yeah,
when in reality it could have just been the timing of everything. But Rinus VK for Dale Coyne, another top 10, is getting me really intrigued and like hoping that he can find his way to like a Foyt or even like McLaren or Andretti here in the next couple of years. I would really like to see VK on one of these like higher level teams to see where his level of talent's at. But
me too, man. I would say I haven't latched on to a driver as much as I have with Renus since he started. So he's obviously, like you said, he's with Dale Coyne. He hasn't been with the best race teams, but I will be super ecstatic, and probably that will be like my first time I feel like I have a real driver with the team that I'm like truly rooting for.
yeah,
Because yeah, um, pretty impressive, like you said. Like he's a good driver. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the list now. It's just crazy to see Lundgaard there at 24. I think he could have been there up higher. Calamila, shout out to him. He actually did a pretty good job maintaining his race. He didn't really. He just maintained himself throughout. And I think that's a lot of the younger guys that may have raced in F2 or something like that. They have familiarity with these types of track. Sure that
sure.
people have mentioned that. So, but yeah, no, it was a fun race. One of my favorite tracks. But let's tease up. I haven't looked up anything myself. I've been so focused on F1 this weekend, or at least trying to get locked in. But we got what did I say? I lost my train of thought. Mid Ohio.
Mid Ohio, yeah.
Yeah, Mid Ohio holiday weekend should be fun. Practice will be on the 4th of July, I think. It's the 4th of
Yeah, I
July.
guess that's on Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's interesting. Yeah. So we'll see if I'm sure I'll be around. I don't know, but we'll see. But yeah, any early leans, likes, anything you wanna shout out about that race?
Yeah, I mean, normally I like to keep it pretty positive for IndyCar because they could use the positivity. But to me, Mid Ohio, like the mid in Mid Ohio, is for like how the race is. It's one of the most boring ones to me.
Yeah.
Hard
to pass.
Yeah, but especially that last year's race with the hybrid being introduced was rough. I haven't looked at a ton. I know Scott Dixon has a great history here, like 6 or 7 wins, but a lot of that came several years ago. Polo's been good here, so I think Ganassi kind of still has something good here. Recent winners, we got like McLaughlin, and then Pato won last year. There's been some couple classic Herta moments that I can think of where he's led 30, 40 laps and had the racing control, and then they forget how to plug his fuel hose in or something when they're filling up. So yeah, this is not my favorite race on the calendar. I do think, road courses have their calendar, so I don't necessarily say for now that it needs to be off the calendar. But yeah, I'll have more next week in the preview to really kind of dig into the stats. But hopefully we just get a little bit better race. Maybe people stay aggressive like they were in Road America. And actually, maybe I would rather just have a boring race. That'll be.
I was gonna say. I mean, if
yeah.
we're gonna make it boring, let's at least cash in on it and let's just be done, right? So
yeah, this past week I had Pelot, McLaughlin, and Lundgaard to win with podium bets on McLaughlin and Lundgaard. There was, it was probably a short time, but there's a decent part of that race where I'm like, these guys are going to finish 1, 2, 3. They're the best cars. Works for me. In that, the big matchup, I'll hit the podium bets. I'll get the winner. And all three of them were all over the place by the end of the race, and I was scared that none of them are going to win. So actually, I'll take a boring race. I apologize, Mid Ohio. You do you.
Yeah. Well, I think it will still be boring. I don't expect there to be a whole lot of changes from last year when they first introduced these hybrids to now, because if anything we've seen this season, it's already been hard to pass in a lot of these races as is. So, I mean, I'm going to take that this is not going to give us anything better. So qualifying is going to be very critical. Maybe again, like you can think about like a yellow could come out. I'm sure we will see it, which we have seen consistently now the past 4 races. I just obviously won't factor that into like how I handicap, because that's just not something you can predict. You just have to just hope and pray for the best, and that you're backing a team and driver that knows strategy. So unfortunately, you can get stung. It's just going to happen. I will say, Scott, I was really mad at you last week. I did say that I don't think I can back you, but there is part of me that says, God, I mean, I feel like he could do it. I don't know.
Especially if the books start hanging like 8-1, 10-1 on these Penske guys.
Yeah, it's tough.
I'm gonna have to.
Yeah. Top 3 at least. I'm very interested to see what his starting number will be. If it can get to 3-1, I'm definitely will consider it. I don't know if I trust Pato. That's just been me all season. I think it goes back to last year, but Lundgaard will be interesting as well. I could see him wanting a bounce back. I need to go back and see, but yeah, Pelot is the
think
one.
Lundgaard's, Pelot, of course, starts with Pelot, but I'm interested to see how low they start with him.
Yeah.
Lundgaard, I think, is a good call because we got him at 20-1 starting out last week. And then even the other books were at like 16, 15-1.
Mm-hmm.
And then he finished 24th, even though we know, like, when we watch it with our eyes, he was one of the better cars.
He could have been top 2.
Yeah, so this might be a prime spot where, like, okay, he bit us a little bit last week, but do the books fall for it and make him even longer? Do they bring him more to what, like a Felix is or an Armstrong?
I don't think so. I think we saw a great number on him last week. And I think if anything, we're going to see any 16-1, 14-1. I bet you will even see 12-1. I think they'll still be pricing them in because I think they're going to be smarter than that. I think maybe I'm giving them too much credit.
Yeah.
But if it is anywhere above 16-1, though, I think that is definitely it. I will actually put my hard-earned money on an outright prequel for once.
There we go.
So, but Pelot, like I said on the Discord, we're witnessing greatness. I would have taken Pelot at -160. I was ready to bang it at -160. Unfortunately, my only book that I had access to allowed me only $100 to do on Pelot, and I was like, man, I was ready to do like 2 or 3 units on just even money. So there was no question in my mind that that was going to win. I did get at one point like, oh my God, Dixon might actually do this, and I have no money on him, and I was shilling him. It was going to make me so mad if he won, actually. Yeah. So excited though. I am excited. So yep, next week we'll give you the not the recap, the betting show. So hopefully we'll get some grid rival lines. I'm praying. I don't think we got any qualifying, did we, last week?
No, I was ready. I was all over that.
It's been 2 weeks now, I feel like.
So I guess they did have them for Gateway, but it was very brief for like a couple hours. I missed it completely. I think that was a pretty chalk qualifying result, and I think I would have smashed that, of course, but never saw it. So.
Yeah, me neither. So let's just cross our fingers. There will be something. We'll see. But yeah, I look forward to it, and we'll see you next week.
Oh, sweet.